Hello and welcome to BOT. Nidal, Lakshit, Suman, and Manthan meet here to talk about the bits of tech as it relates to digital transformation. Tune in and enjoy.
All right, here we go. We are now called BOT. It's Bits of Tech. We came up with this new name because we liked it better and for various other reasons. When it comes to bits of tech, and the reason why we got here um, is because there would be enough digital asset that would implicate a brand name. And as we are talking about a brand name, advertising comes line with a brand name. So I don't think, as far as my memory goes, advertisement has always been a part of our lives, right? To start with, it was newspapers, at least for my life. Then there was magazines. Then there was cassettes. Um, then there was CDs, so on and so forth, right? So as we came from the print media to digital, ads became from print to digital, and it just kept ever evolving. That kind of tells you the topic that we are going to talk about today, which is digital ads. And I'll say it on the record that it is Lakshit's favorite topic. Why? Because the man himself is from Google. So Lakshit, what do you think?
Hey Manthan, thanks for introducing me that way. Uh, I really hope that I'm getting paid for these podcasts as much as the people pay Google for these ads. But I hope so. Anyways, yeah, digital ads. I mean, the landscape in itself is evolving beyond just digital. I mean, traditional advertisements earlier used to be just out of home advertisements, those banners, printing graffitis on walls of restaurants, dhabas in India, used to be one of those banner places for advertisements. People had their own methods for advertising, using word of mouth advertisements. And I still recall some of the very creative TV advertisements that we used to have. Quite frankly speaking, I loved the advertisement landscape back in the 90s, the TV advertisement and the creativity of it. But slowly and steadily, as the penetration of internet and mobile devices came into our lives, so did the shift from traditional TV, out of home advertisements. We are now in an age where we are being served approximately, as per a Forbes report, approximately 60 to 80,000 kinds of different ads on a daily basis. The global ad spend is about what, $700 billion market, and yeah, I mean that's a huge number of people spending so much ads on it, and it's approximated that we will move away from these traditional, that 60% of any company's ad spends would be digital as compared to more traditional, maybe just a few years back. So earlier it used to be 100% traditional out of home advertisements, and now it's more 60% digital and the rest. So I'll invite everybody's opinion here, but just wanted to throw some of those big numbers your way, that how huge the market here is for advertising spends, and given the market size, what are all the opportunities and innovation that's coming our way. So we'll discuss that further, but I'll invite Nidal and Suman to take over. Suman, over to you.
Thank you, thank you. Well, there's a lot of money out there. I think I should be switching my field and be a part of either the advertisers or the publisher group somewhere when I can, where even I can make a lot of money like Lakshit. But nevertheless, as you know, we've been speaking about the ads industry from point A up until probably point Z, and how it has grown. I've worked in, the data science space, and I know for a fact that we work on collaborating, filtering algorithms or predictive model to even create that dynamic content. So obviously we do have advertisers who, work on it, but even in my experience on which page, what sort of content should be shown, there's a lot that's going behind. So there's one side of which obviously I've been a part of. But the other side of it is me as an end user, as a consumer, right? I get bugged up if I just type Nike shoes and I'm seeing ads all over the place when I go to Facebook, when I see Google or any other, platform, wherein I'm not really interested in seeing. So as much as this is a very interesting space, from an algorithm perspective for me. It's also annoying at times uh, as a consumer. As much annoying sometimes that, ever since Facebook acquired WhatsApp, I get messages on WhatsApp, on Chroma, hey, buy this electronic or buy whatever XYZ, and wherever I would have given my number to the store. So I think it's overwhelming. Maybe, I don't know the extent of annoying that is, but it's a very good and a tricky space to be in, considering both the sides. So that's my first thought uh, here. So I'm happy to discuss more with you guys.
Great overview, Suman. And first of all, I'd like to start with apologizing by the fact that I'm one of those guys who like inserts those cookies in your browser and then tracks what you do and then gives you ads based off of it. Just kidding. But that's typically what people always ask me when I explain what I do for a living. But this space or digital advertising space has evolved a lot ever since it came into the picture. I would say that when it came into the picture, I was not paying as much attention as as other folks here, like Manthan. I know, Manthan, you've probably been in like tech and you've been into computing, etc., since a very long time. I started following it when I started doing my first internship, right? And that's why it's very special. My first internship was at a digital marketing agency based out of Mumbai. And though my work was mostly in the social media space, I used to love how like an agency works, how you put together creatives, how you like some of the discussions I've had there working in the agency, like having a whiteboard, brainstorming session where you think about different ideas of how you can, put a brand across and put a message across, etc. Those have been like really, really great instances. But yeah, digital advertising hence is very special to me because that's where I started my career understanding of digital landscape. Ever since then, and that's probably like 7 to 8 years back, maybe. But ever since then, there's been a lot going on, right? It's really overwhelming to see the pace at which things have changed. So. I don't want to derail or take this conversation to a completely different tangent by saying, there's third-party cookies which are going away. And that's like a very interesting trend right now. A lot of advertisers are like, they're getting adjusted. They're getting okay with that fact because, there's no option. But also looking at alternatives, etc. So I recently did a lot of research on those lines, but I would not dive into that topic, right? One thing I would say though is like all of you who are probably listening in, you don't have any idea where this conversation is going to go in like an hour, just like the four of us here, right? So I'm like just signing up for, let's see where this conversation goes. We started talking about digital ads. We don't know where it's going to end up. So yeah, that's my perspective, at least to start with.
Yeah, I mean, great point, Siddhal. I was thinking cookies when you said cookies, and I was also thinking that let me not talk about cookies when you said not to. So we're thinking alike here. Um, but let's put a few things out there, right? My brain is running in two directions at this point of time. One is I want to very heavily talk about the measurement of ads, right? But before that, I'd love to hear you all's thought on why ads, right? My basic nascent understanding of ads is that when you don't want to pay for a service, right? Pay with money using a service, ads give you an opportunity to pay for that service with your time. All right. In return, what you would end up giving could very well be money or more money. That's the endless cycle of advertisement, the way I see it, right? And if I were to break down my own complex thought there, what I'm trying to say is that uh, the subscriptions that we see online today are based on either money-based subscriptions or the free versions, which are ad-based, right? Every time you watch that ad, somebody's getting paid, right? Somebody's paying money for it. Somebody's getting paid. Why is this happening? Because you, as the consumer of that ad, um, are the recipient, and without knowing, you have contributed to a part of an economy that exists where some employers are getting paid, some advertisers are getting paid, somebody who's advertising is also getting paid while paying money to other people, right? This is the, for the lack of a better word, it's not a vicious, but it's an endless cycle of how this loop happens. There is so much to unpack in this loop itself, right? As to whom you show which ad to, right? Or why would you show it? When would you show it? We know all of that, right? That's kind of done and dusted where it has, in my understanding, become a common knowledge now that yes, you will show people ads who are based on a specific geography. They are of a specific age, this gender, this household. We know all of that. Yes, it's based on attributes, generally speaking. But the why of it becomes interesting, right? And then the how of it. What has happened today is that like there was a point in time when there was so much money in the industry, or with the businesses, industry is a wrong term, with the businesses, that they could just do a lot of ads and afford till somebody eventually converts. Now, with all the latest digital tools which have come in, what has happened is that those ads are also targeted, which means that if earlier an ad was being shown to 1 lakh people, now out of data analysis, etc., we have found out that this ad only needs to be shown to 10,000 people. What this leaves me with as an advertiser, what this leaves me with is a room of 90,000 more people whom I can show different ads. This has changed in my understanding from where it started to where it is. So my 2 points in summary is what we are doing in terms of payment for ads, right? Why those ads, and then um, how the entire targeting came into perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, perfect, Manthan. So I'll take that one. Firstly, I'll answer the question of why ads. And in fact, before even answering the question, I'd like to correct myself. So in my excitement for this, podcast, I maybe misquoted myself as saying 60,000 to 80,000 ads a day. That number is actually 6 to 8,000. Sorry for getting too excited. So just correcting myself. But yeah, coming back to the question on why ads. Uh, like I said, speaking even traditionally speaking, ads are how a business will grow. So as long as there's a monopoly in the market, you don't need to advertise. People will come to you. People have their own needs. They'll come to you. So as long as it's a industry driven market, you don't need to spend on ads because people because with the demand and supplies initiative, if there's more demand, less supply, people will come to you yourself. But in today's economy, where the audiences are more need for where you have so many supply, you have so much supply, the supply is is over has overtaken demand by a much higher scale. Competition for customers attention, for their recall has increased. The share of voice, the competition for share of voice and share of wallet has increased, which has given rise to this imprudent way of advertising, where people want to just reach out to as many people as possible, as fast as possible, as near to them as possible. Now, talking about the ad objectives themselves, there are typically two objectives and when we design a campaign. One is reach, the other is accuracy, meaning either brand campaigns or performance campaigns. So what you said about 100,000 people, then boiling it down to 10,000, actually it goes both ways. Uh, Depending on what the objective of your brand is. If you're a new startup, you're a new company, you want to have a higher recall, you want to penetrate into a new market, you would ideally want to reach as many people as you can with very little an idea of what your target audience would be. When you don't have enough information about what your target audience would be, you want to reach as many people as you want, as you can, even if it includes some non-targeted or non-qualified audiences, which is fair, which is fine. Let the ads be out there. Once you've collected enough data about these people and you understood which are your highest performing sections or cohorts or audiences, that is when you then decide to do more frequency capping, or more targeted ads, or just restrict it to a certain set of audiences that are more profitable for your business. So that's pretty much the landscape, and it's this permutation and combination between reach and accuracy that drives the entire tech business and drives innovation in this advertisement scape landscape, where there are two players out there: advertisers and publishers. Advertisers are the ones who spend the money. Publishers are the one who serve your ads, who are the mediums and the drivers uh, for publishing your ads, for hosting your ads, so that people can watch it, see it. And then there are many agencies who do it for you as well. So the whole ecosystem, if you were to boil it down, would include advertisers, agencies, and publishers, and then the consumers finally. So like a circle that will keep on loop. I do agree with you on the circle part. The vicious part is what we'll talk about. Over to you, Suman.
Well, all of this is very interesting. I did when I had just joined my first firm, that is when I got introduced to what a DSP is and what a SSP is and what a DMP is, which is all the terms that you just very well explained, Lakshit. And it's such a land and vast landscape that I think it's for a person like me, I can just get lost in it. But one of the use cases that I had worked on, and which I would like to discuss about, is in the banking industries. So there are a lot of HNI customers in a bank, and they wanted to send and they wanted to cross sell a particular product to them. And obviously, SMS is one way how they could reach out to them, right? And email being second, and there's a lot of cost involved. So how can you actually segment the users typically in a way that what sort of ads should be sent to whom and what, when, where? So all of the things that we've spoken about, right? So when I worked on it, I figure that as much as how easily everybody's speaking about it right here, it is not that simple. It involves a lot of brainstorming, a lot of objectivity. What is it that you're actually trying to do? What would be the outcome? Despite that, I worked in probably just 10% of the work in this whole landscape. So I absolutely understand it's a very intriguing space. But still, I will stick to my point that I am annoyed by it as a consumer a lot of times. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think very valid call outs, right? One of the points I mentioned earlier was about third-party cookies, and the reason it's going away is from a privacy perspective. You want to ensure that a user on internet is not being tracked across different sites. Their browser history is being used in the wrong context, and then there's different types of scripts that are running on a user's browser that's sending data to a lot of different endpoints, and that's being used to sell information about a user, right? Which comes at a very high, it's of high demand. There's a lot of businesses out there that thrive on just selling personal data to other agencies, right? Which is highly unethical. But that's one of the reasons this entire practice of cross-site tracking is going to go away. Now that being the case, there's something very traditional about digital advertising. There's a method known as contextual advertising. This is actually from like the starting days, right? There used to be something known as, contextual advertising is basically when you display an ad that is based on the context of the page that is being displayed. So if you are, for example, on a recipe page where you're reading about a certain recipe, there might be an ad getting displayed for some of the ingredients, to purchase those ingredients which could be related to that recipe. So that's contextual advertising, and it is not a hit or miss method, right? It is like there's a chance that a user can relate with the ad, and it doesn't sort of break the experience, because in most cases what happens is that you get shown an ad that is a hit or a miss, which has got nothing to do with your interests, which has got nothing to do with what you're browsing, but it still gets displayed to you, and then that is not irrelevant for you, right? Another way in which, for example, how advertisers measure relevancy is by how often people are clicking into an ad when it is displayed to them in a certain context. If more people are clicking, it means that ad is probably relevant to those people. But contextual advertising, the reason I bring it up is because it is one of the traditional sort of methods which our businesses are planning to like sort of resort to, because now that you won't have access to someone's the list of websites that somebody has visited, etc., then you are reliant on some of these methods like contextual advertising, and there are a few more, but I just wanted to also gather if you have any thoughts. It looks like you might have some thoughts there, Manthan. I'll take a pause.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, I'll I'll give a rounded answer, so I'll get to the point eventually. But let me start by saying that as you brought up ad measurement, right? Um, when we say the advertising world, it is much beyond our computer and mobile, right? Computer and mobile is, yes, a good chunk of our lives or what we do, but there are people who are not technical, and that is the larger chunk in the world when you take the world in a account, right? How do these people get reached by? Two. That happens with, let's say, billboards. That happens with TV ads. That happens with flyers. All of these are ads, right? And what companies are trying to do today is that they want all of this uh, to be under the same measurement strategy. That's the ideal world, right? And when I say the same measurement strategy, meaning that the matrix of success for all these advertisements should be the same. That's how you would ideally develop a success matrix dashboard, right? The challenge that I've seen is that the success metric for different channels are different. So bringing alignment for these success metrics among different channels becomes very, very challenging, right? Not mathematically. You can always do the math. You can always do your denominators and numerators right. That can happen. The mathematical formula is there. What is not there probably is the tools to get it right. For example, the Google advertising landscape would cater to everything digital. But how would it calculate the ad that is being shown on TV, right? Which is on Roku SDK, just as an example, which has got nothing to do with Google, right? Which is not sending any query string parameter or whatever. It might in the backend. All these SDKs, by the way, they have encoding available via multiple technologies, including Google, where if I'm watching that ad on TV, it can send a server call to Google saying that, hey, this ad was viewed here by this viewer, so on and so forth. That is available. What is not is a similar metric, because just as an example, now that I'm talking about TV ads could a loose definition of how a TV ad could be measured would be the number of people viewing that TV ad by the number of times they viewed a given TV ad, right? There's a very loose definition of how a measurement could occur. I'm not saying that's how it occurs. But that is not how a digital advertisement is measured, right? That would be the number of times somebody was shown an ad, then was clicked or viewed, right? Impression versus clicks. So these metrics are different among the channels. That's my point one. And that is why it becomes difficult to have everything um, in a similar dashboard. Let's say that you ended up doing this. The effort that it takes, effort and or cost that it takes to get all of this done, which includes building the right measurement strategy, getting all the metrics under the same database, data table, whatever you call it, and then building a unified dashboard out of it. The amount of capital that would go into it and into maintaining it may not always be worth for a business to invest in, um, just for ensuring that their measurement is right, or is on the same dashboard. Why it may not be worth is because the channel heads for each of these advertisements are different, right? Um, let's say that the CMO is responsible for everything, right? The chief marketing officer. Yes, they are. But then they have different vertical heads reporting into them. And all these sales marketing heads are doing their own dashboards. These are some challenges I want to highlight when it comes to measurement, right? Um, there is lack of strategies. If there is enough strategies, then there is lack of funds to measure these strategies, right? And not because businesses do not have money, just that their priorities are in a different side. Like as a CMO, I would care more about the conversion, right? And having a dashboard which is showing me numbers as opposed to unifying my entire view by investing into a technology stack. So these are some things that I've seen in real life for well-known brands where they just have huge televisions in on their center screen, and they have like 5 dashboards popping up every few seconds with new numbers on them, and that's how ad measurement happens. I'm not saying that's how it happens everywhere, but I do see that there's a lack of availability of tools in terms of bringing everything under one roof. What do you have to say?
Well, I just
Great
have
one.
Go on.
one point here that I would like to ask, in fact. Uh, so, Manthan, you spoke about measurement, right? The amount of money that the business is putting and what is the ROI that they're getting at the end of the day. But in this quest of achieving the key matrix, what I have observed is that the marketers are now resorting to clickbait ads, right? Which I think is to an extent not right for the consumers, but that's the way that they actually also make money. So that's something when you spoke such beautifully about the measurement. Uh, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Why clickbait ads? What is it? Money is something that they obviously get, but why? I mean, with given that there's so much that's happening already, why do they have to resort to it? So
I'll
that's
give a
my
very
question.
short answer to your question, and then maybe Lakshit had a point to speak. Clickbait ads are not official in nature. Most clickbait ads are not official in nature, which means that if I'm the business, it is less likely that I will produce a clickbait ad. The publisher, for example, an affiliate marketer who could be getting paid out of their affiliate code being in my ad, they could be making these clickbait ads. So um, it's almost as good as putting the photo of a burger in front of your shop which sells burger, right? But you know that the burger, when it comes to your plate, it's never the same as it looks in the photo. I just wish that a burger was as good looking, right? And as equally good tasting that it looks on the paper. But that's not how it is, right? That is also a clickbait. Debatably, it is a clickbait. What I'm trying to say is that in most cases, as far as the digital world is concerned, it is not the business directly. Uh, those clickbaits are not sponsored by the business directly. But yes, it exists. Lakshit.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say the same thing. Clickbaits, I mean, that's just unethical marketing practices and very rare in nature. I mean, they do occur and we should avoid it, but that's a very different conversation to have about ethical and unethical advertising, practices. Clickbait being one of them, you're offering more than the given discount, or, just writing very small lines of text, which are supposed to be legally required, showing up explicit images to attract clicks, and then shopping for something else, and then displaying for something other products. Unethical marketing practices. It does. I mean, there are. Searches like Google and other platforms. They do track these clickbait practices and penalize the advertisers and the publishers equally. And the trust score continues to drop. And if it drops beyond a point, then their cost for acquiring a new customer, or a cost for serving the ad, or their ad quality or ad strength continues to drop, which will then of course result in more spends and for them, and more penalties for them. So that's a different conversation. But coming back to what Manthan mentioned about having common matrices and common measurement strategies for the ads. So let me put it out there that one of the, if we're talking at the CMO level, let's start at the, generally we start at the bottom and build up to the top, but let's in this case start at the top and try and boil the discussion down to some more fragmented pieces of it. So at a CMO level, or at a business level, the matrices that they will want to count is the cost of acquiring a new customer. So every business, just like every other spend, has some very broad spends and budgets allocated for each of the departments: marketing, operations, sales, and everything. So suppose they spend, let's say, 25% or 30% of their entire yearly budget just on marketing spends, then they would take an average order value divided by the average marketing spend, which will include the cost of marketing, the ads across, and the salaries paid to the marketers and the teams, and then derive a cost of customer acquisition. As long as it's positive, they will continue to spend on those channels. If it's negative, they will then revisit the strategies and see where they can optimize their spends. Of course, a lot of businesses also run on negative CACs, negative. When I say CAC, when I say negative based CACs, it means like a, as compared to a benchmark for their industry, as compared to a benchmark for the industry, because they're trying to grow their business and they're trying to acquire new people, in which case they will also run into cash burn situations. Uh, but put simply, I think what we are trying to understand here is how a person, if you have to measure any ad interaction, is how a person interacts with the ad and then engages with it. So even if it's a billboard ad, they will interact with it, but how will they engage with it? If it's a TV ad, they can interact with it. More or less, they can interact with it. If it's a smart TV, they can also engage with it. Digital platform is one place, and why is it more easier to measure in those places? Because it gives you the same platform both interaction and engagement. In case of billboard ad, you might see a billboard ad outside, flyover while walking by it. If it's near the store, you can assume that out of 100 people who view my ad, 20 people will come to my store in the next 30 days and then make a purchase with me. But that's a more presumption based and assumption based calculation. Whereas in cases of digital ads, as you rightly mentioned, impressions and clicks give you a direct metric and a very direct attribution for you. So if I was to create a dashboard out of it or a table out of it, I would simply ask every marketing team, let's say an out of home advertising team, my event managers, my digital marketers, my product teams, even for that matter, who are building these community based marketing strategies, is what would be their interaction metric versus an engagement metric. As long as we can standardize those metrics into a business level, yes, we should be able to then qualify them all into a single metric for the business. But because given the sheer challenges in the standardizing them, is where spends versus basically revenue out and revenue in is where they generally tend to keep it in. But there is definitely a behavioral shift, Manthan, that's going on, where people are now spending because of the smart devices that are coming into our lives, the penetration of mobile, specifically mobile, going coming into the market. People are starting to now move away from traditional set-top box type of TV or cable TV. I would say cable TV or set-top box type of nature TV to a more smart TV solutions, where all of, as you mentioned, Roku. I mean, that's a word for most of our audiences might not be familiar with that, how what Roku is, but they should be able to understand that those are SDKs and those are measurement solutions which are now available for TVs that support those kind of apps and strategies that can be measured uh, and reported back to their advertiser. But so I'll just end there, and just to take up to Nidal's one topic about contextual marketing. I just wanted to throw a number out there. He's absolutely bang on about marketing becoming more contextual and moving forward with all the cookies deprecating and all the privacy centric regulations coming in. Advertising will become more contextual, but the challenge there becomes, Google practically gets what about billions of searches in a single day, and I'm talking multi-billions. I think it's about 8 or 8.5 billion searches a day, of which there's about 15% searches that have never happened before, which is where those contextual targetings also have to take that into account, that you're trying to build a contextual market where there has not been a context before. So all their advertisers, so all of these, and not just Google for that matter, in fact Meta and Instagram and every other advertiser, bigger advertisers, are actually working towards building a more safe and secure and ethical market uh, for our consumers, so that they can have ads that are more relevant and meaningful to them without being intrusive, so that we can also serve advertisement to people like Suman who are very annoyed by it. Over to you, Nidal.
Yeah, I'll say that out of those 15% of people who are like, queries which are like new to Google, I'm sure you're contributing a lot, because I know you are a guy who like asks questions that nobody else thinks of, which are smart questions. So I'm not undermining you in any way. But to add on to what you said about, measurement in general, you talked about some really great points around engagement metrics versus, impression metrics, for example. There's one other thing that I wanted to add on here, is that when organizations, when large tech organizations, this is from my experience working with an analytics agency that's evaluating web analytics metrics for large organizations that are spending like millions of dollars into ads, right? So think about another big tech like Google. I won't take the actual client name here, but then I was involved in a lot of those presentations where generally the advertising agency would present numbers on how the metrics are looking like across these different platforms. And then Manthan, when you talked about, putting all of those numbers into a dashboard, it literally becomes like, you have like a slide that has so many charts, so many numbers, so many insights, and then trying to get the real insight out of it was a challenge. Now, what my role was in that sort of weekly, let's call it a weekly meeting, right, was to add context from a web analytics standpoint. How do things look like when people actually land on the website after seeing that ad? So my role was sort of trying to stitch the data that is, for example, someone visits an ad, lands on a certain website, and that website sometimes maybe has like, connecting to other retailers, and then the retailer websites, you don't have a lot of data from there, right? Because that's not your own website, so that data is maintained by them. But then sometimes they are like sending back certain impression data. For example, think about Amazon as a retailer, and your website is like redirecting a lot of people to Amazon to purchase from Amazon, and then someone from the Amazon data team is like sending back data in Excel exports of like, these are the purchases that happened, and from some sort of attribution happens. It's a presumption, like Lakshit said, like how it happens offline. You cannot like exactly stitch data together, but that is a challenge, because it's not an easy job to do, and trying to get insights. But one thing I've realized is very important is for any advertiser or anyone who's working on media spends, they need to have a very clear measurement goal for any type of advertisement, right? And what is that measurement goal? What are you expecting out of it? What are the key value or the high value actions? Or the key, let's call it a conversion, right? What is the key conversion that you're trying to measure from a certain ad? And this also goes back to the fundamental reasons why you would use an ad. If it is for an awareness purpose, then obviously the reach matters. You just want more and more people to know about it. But when it comes to, for example, if it is, engagement is one of the objectives, did people sign up for maybe a product sample, or did somebody do a specific action? That's what you want to like measure, right? And that having that vision in mind is very important when you are like even setting up the ad, setting it up across like different platforms, different channels, just to make sure you are thinking about being able to measure that end result and tying it back to how much you spent on the ad, when you're calculating ROI or ROAS, etc. So yeah, I think from a measurement standpoint, it's very important, and especially web analytics has a good role to play there, because most ads, digital ads, lead people to websites, and then what happens on the website might actually determine whether the brand is actually making some money out of that, right? Is there a conversion or revenue that comes out of it? So yeah, that whole journey, and getting that visibility, tracking that, reporting that, sharing insights, is a challenging job, where especially when you haven't thought it all through, like when you have set it all up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack, but let me pick one thing that you said, yeah, right, Nidal, ROAS, the return on ad spend. That is the metric that is the most sought after from large organizations, right? Because it is an easily understood metric from a calculation standpoint, and it gives direct answers. To be able to reach to ROAS, one needs to have the base matrix in place. There comes everybody's argument of measurement, right? And one answer that has become obvious to all of this and applies to everything, including offline, is the CTA, the call to action, right? Uh, Call to action, I remember at least almost till 5 to 6 years ago, was not a common norm. But now there is a CTA on everything. Probably there is a CTA for CTA as well, right? Things have reached at that level where if somebody was sending me a flyer, which is a common practice in North America still, I'm just letting you all know. I don't know about the other parts of the world, but in here it is where flyers are common. Now, if somebody's sending me a card in there, they will have a coupon code, right? Say take $5 off because that's their marketing budget. But as soon as I put in that coupon code, they would know where that card was sent to. If not my name and address because of PII reasons, then they would at least know which area, right? So whatever is allowed to get captured with that CTA, they will. And the same is true for digital ads. We very well know all the ads that are popping up once you click on it, that's your CTA. There has been a shift, a little bit of shift into the CTA concept itself from a measurement standpoint, is that um, now there are in-app CTAs. In-app CTAs being your website in itself would show you a pop-up of, hey, do this to get this, right? If you make this purchase in next 5 minutes, you'll get this deal. That is in-app CTA for me, right? That is showing you the urgency of time and giving you a deal in return in order to ensure that you're placing that order, right? Because that day's target has not been met, or that day they had more budget for marketing, whichever the reason be, right? Um, Smart CTAs have come in place. Another example, and a very interesting one for me, was there was a company, and I'm not at the liberty to name the company, but they were specifically doing this. Assume that you're watching television, right? In whichever format, it could be digital television, your digital, digital YouTube, whatever. You were able to, for example, click on the specs that I'm wearing, and you were redirected to the buying link of that specs, or these headphones that I'm wearing, or this hoodie that I'm wearing, whatever it be, right? This is the this used to be a thing, almost like I think before pandemic or while pandemic, right? This used to be a thing wherein people wanted to get into these nitty-gritties. It so happened that the user adoption curve for these CTAs would have been very steep. The adoption could have gone like this, but then it may have been like this as well, right? Like those were the two um, extreme possibilities as far as these kind of CTAs are concerned. I think that would demand a tweak in user behavior. I think we'll get there, but not right away. It could be another 5 years where we'll get to those level of CTAs where everything that a celebrity is wearing, or an influencer is wearing, is a CTA in itself. Everybody is trying to do that. That also remains a challenge for success in most cases. But just throwing that perspective out there. What do you think?
Yeah, Manthan, just to maybe surprise you on that. In fact, let me blow your mind with that.
Hmm.
You were saying how far it is. It's already here. So
Okay.
there's a new. I'm sure you must have seen these ads for new mobile for Samsung. It's called Samsung A24, where you have a new feature called Circle to Search. What you can actually do is, if you're watching a series, you're watching a movie, and you like something, like for example, I like your specs, I can simply draw a circle, and that's it. I even don't know what specs you're wearing, what brand you're wearing, what headphones you're wearing. Nothing. I don't have to even search for it. Just circle it. Google will immediately show the search results for it, like what are the top search results, and then you can immediately from those search pages. Searches have become so efficient and innovative that you have shopping CTAs right within your search ad. So you can search it, shop it right there without even ever leaving your actual screen where you're viewing your favorite movie. Uh, Having said that, let me throw some wrench in the mix. Let me throw some wrench in the cock for you to talk about some of the challenges, or some of the biggest challenge in digital ad space, where I said that there are hundreds of players in the both advertising agency, publisher space that are serving the same customer. That's the keyword, the same customer. And that same customer happens to be someone who gets annoyed with so many multiple ads. So now let's understand how it affects the advertiser. So suppose you're a new company, you have just recently started a company, you started spending on, let's say, two, three digital channels, and you took a lot of strategy, you advertised on two, three spend channels, and then finally you got one conversion. And now at the end of the month, all these three, channels come to you and say, hey, you know what? We brought you that conversion. The 100 rupees or whatever, amount or X amount that you earn from that customer, some of it belongs to us, maybe 1% or 2% or 3% of it. So let me ask you this. How would you decide which, if it's obvious, only one could have driven the conversion, right? You can only pay one advertiser. How would you decide which one to pay and which one not to? And all of those three channels are claiming that they drove the conversion.
That's where the attribution comes in, right?
Yes.
Attribution is the answer to it.
it is supposed to be the answer for it. As
Mm.
unfortunately, that is the entire puzzle that people are trying to solve for, because attribution is not a objective reasoning. Every advertiser, publisher, everybody has their own attribution model and have their own attribution settings. With the reason for attribution, the reason for the problem itself is attribution, because all the platforms will say, because of our attribution setting, we believe whether we were the first click or the last click or a participation click, we in some way influenced this sale, and because we influence the sale in some way, we deserve a portion of it. All three channels are actually running an attribution where they're saying we don't know whether we were the first click or the last click in actual sequence of event. Maybe somebody clicked on my platform for A first, then came to your website, then went to B, and then to C, and then finally made a purchase. So 80% of users these days actually make at least 5 to 10 website comparisons before making a first one purchase, which means they are actually visiting multiple channels, multiple platforms, even reviewing social media profiles, reviews, and critiques and influencers before making a final purchase, and which brings into account all of these channels and agencies being both publishers and even the influencer and affiliates who participate in this. So the biggest challenge that the customers are trying to solve for are actually twofold. One is this attribution problem. A, of course, I need to spend my money, but what do I do if two channels come to me, or two or more channels come to me saying that we drove 100%, or for whatever portion of your analysis, we drove 100% of the conversion, wherein you got only a single conversion. So your duplication of efforts, duplication of spends is where the businesses are struggling to really optimize their spends. Uh, and the next problem is incrementality, incremental budgets, incremental money. Meaning, I've been spending for the last 1 year, I've been spending for the last 2 years. What if I stop my marketing spend right this second? I have been spending for last 2 years. I've built a customer base. I have 100 loyal customers coming to me who also see my ad. Of course, for some odd reason, they will continue to see my ad. What if I spend my, cut my marketing cost right now? I go off completely dark spend. Will I still continue to be able to serve 100 people? Will I serve more people? Will I serve less people? The answer you might always assume would be less, but you'll be surprised in some cases the answer, in fact, could also be positive. Or when I say positive, it actually means no impact, which means you had already reached a saturation point where the customer recall has become so high that your ad spends no longer influence greatly to your business spends. Maybe if you continue spending, you'll get what, 10% conversions, higher conversions. If you don't spend, you'll get what, 5-6% conversion. So the trade-off does not justify the spends that we continue to make. Those are some of the biggest and critical questions that advertisers are asking for today, and we as agents of those digital, or agents, or stewards of digital consulting are trying to solve for.
Yeah, I mean,
That's my
it's great perspective, Lakshit. What I'll say is that most organizations that I've worked with have agreed on a measurement strategy, right? Before even attribution, sorry, not measurement, attribution, and before even attribution came in picture, everybody was doing last touch. So last touch is everybody's default. Used to be. Of course, it has become a topic of debate, like you rightly explained. But I'm just saying that the default everywhere that I have seen in my experience is last touch, and people are working to optimize that.
Yeah, there's a lot
Anyway,
of
yeah.
optimization going in. I think also worth mention is if you have worked with Google Analytics, there's the latest version of Google Analytics, which is Google Analytics 4, offers data-driven attribution, right? And that's the default model in Google Analytics 4 for any new properties that are set up in it. It uses machine learning and algorithms. It brings into the picture several factors. Apparently, it's a black box algorithm, which you don't have a lot of visibility into what measurement methodology is used behind the scenes, but it apparently considers approximately up to 50 different parameters for assigning credit, right? Which in itself explains why humans or even traditional methods will not be sufficient for answering this question. But yeah, traditionally, I think always it has been the last touch attribution, wherever I've also seen. One thing I'll also mention is that I started with this, that digital advertising is very special to me because I started working at an agency. I used to have a mentor who actually hired me there. I still remember him saying at that time, back in the back in I think 2016, that attribution is the word. Like, he literally told me this. Marketing attribution is the key word. Just, that's where a lot of brands are invested in right now. It's going to be like, a huge solution if brands can figure it out. And then the other one he told me about was programmatic advertising, but that has become so mainstream now. Pretty much all large organizations are very much invested into programmatic ad buying. But yeah, these two terms I still remember from my mentor back in the day, that these are going to go big, and if you want to like really get some insight into like what are the trends, where the industry is headed, he mentioned it to me back then, and I see still that these are very actively used and like discussed. So just remember that.
Okay, we are almost at time. Great conversation. I loved the insight. I think I learned a lot personally. That's why we meet, I guess, right? Other than for other people to listen, we're just listening to each other. But obviously it will benefit the larger community. Um, I this digital ads in general, if I were to sum up what we are talking about, and before I do that, Suman, I just want to give you a chance, just in case if you had anything to speak about on what we have. Otherwise, I'll try and wrap this up for us.
You can go ahead, Manthan.
Okay. Yeah. So, great questions. My end takeaway is that where I left these things 3 years ago, we are still there. We are still solving the same problems. So this can be solved using technology. And I've said this before for other things as well in other episodes. So pardon me for repeating it. But I've seen data scientists doing magic in this, right? Um, where they have built three different algorithms, using three different algorithms, and said that if you use this algorithm, this is why you should be using it. Here is why this particular channel is the winner for this algorithm. And this is how it would benefit your business rules, right? Hence, your ROAS will increase by this much. And those three different algorithms give different outputs. Data science will very much be needed into any sort of micro data processing problem like this. Advertising in general, in my understanding, is a micro data processing problem, right? Wherein you will have to analyze each click and then each column within that click to be able to arrive at a decision. That only a machine can do in a larger context with hundreds of GBs of data. Uh, that would be the way forward. And that way forward may not be by actually employing a data scientist into the mix, but by creating utilities like how Nidal mentioned that is a default in GA4 now, which is data-driven attribution, or introducing a new tool altogether, right? Which will do all of this for you. Just feed all your ad data to it, right? Because ad data in most cases, not in most, but in many cases is standard in terms of what input it will give you, what input you could give. After that, apply all the fancy things you could do with data science with it, and then voila, your beautiful dashboard is ready with all the right attribution models available at your disposal, right? Click, 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 and do things. I have seen this in a very small form, not in an enterprise version, but I think a tool like this can surely solve many of these challenges. Um, that's my answer to most of the challenges we speak about, by the way. So I'll have to rethink the way I think, but either way, we call it a wrap. This was a good discussion. Thank you everyone